Hi, everyone. Welcome. Today on the podcast, we actually have fellow podcasters, somewhat OG podcasters who were around for so many years, the folks from ABA Inside Track, Diana, Robert, and Jackie. Hi, guys. Welcome.
Hi,
Hello.
Hi there.
we're so
Um,
excited to be here. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming. I mean, I've been listening to ABA Inside Track for years. I think before there as many podcasts as there are today, there weren't so many a couple years ago. So thank you for, starting that trend that has become so common. What we love to do here is kind of get to know a little bit more about the people who practice ABA and obviously the people behind what you guys do. So can you start by introducing yourselves and maybe a little bit about you outside of the podcast?
Sure, I'll go first just because that's usually how we start our own show. So I think that's what we're all used to. So my name's Rob Perry Cruz. I am a BCBA. I'm a special education teacher here in Massachusetts and in the US. And I've been doing that role for a long time. And I was the first one to get interested in podcasting. So I was the lead. Well, I think Jackie had wanted to do something related to behavior analysis. I just wanted to talk about other crap that was not professionally related, but then it sort of dovetailed into the podcast. So I mostly work in schools with students with challenging behavior, learning difficulties, and then I do the podcast for fun after work.
Awesome. Well, we could do a whole podcast just on that. But I guess next, Diana.
Sure. Well, it's actually 2024 and Jackie goes before me during this particular year. So I'm going to turn the mic over to her.
So I'm Jackie. And I was like, why do I always have to go last? I've been last for like 7 years. And so then I made 2024 my year. So I'm second. So my name is Jackie. I've been in the field of behavior analysis since 1999, which is gross to say.
I know. I've been in since 97, but I was only like 3 years old then, so I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
It doesn't add up.
As a baby. And so currently I am working as the chair of a master's program in behavior analysis at Regis College. And I also help direct our autism center at Regis College, where we provide integrated behavior analytics services to young children, usually around 3 to 7 years old.
Cool.
And outside of that work, I like dogs and the outdoors.
Love it.
Thanks, Jackie. All right. I'm Diana. I am bringing up the caboose of our group for today. And like many of you, I have been working in the field of special education / behavior analysis with a career that spans millennia. Yep, that's right. Exactly. And I too work at Regis College. I am an associate professor there, and I dabble with the Autism Center, but what takes up a lot of my time is that I'm the fieldwork coordinator. So I am the go-to person to answer any questions about fieldwork, unrestricted hours, and how to track those things.
Awesome.
Yeah. And we've been doing the pod for like 8 years.
When you just said that, I was like 7 years, 8 years. I remember listening to some of your very beginning episodes. I'm like, was it really that long ago? And then I remember thinking back, well, yeah, it was before COVID. And it was always when I was driving from client to client in my car. And I haven't been doing home therapy now for a while. So it's, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess it has been.
Even before I had a child. Because if you listen to the first few episodes, I'm like, I'm never going to have a child.
It was a running gag for a year or two.
That's hysterical.
And
so what made you guys start the podcast?
So I had been interested in podcasting as a form back in I guess it would have been about 2014, 2015. And I had a podcast where I would ask people to tell me their favorite song, and we talk about their favorite song. And
wait, is that still around? And what's the name?
No, we were not able to keep. It was hard to keep up with getting guests and then interviewing people, and then this podcast took up all the time, and so it hasn't really. I keep thinking we're going to add it back in, but not everyone wants to talk about their favorite song, or if you throw it out,
You
they're
know,
like,
Rob, what's
I don't
going
know.
you know what's going through my mind right now? I'm like, okay, so I've got this one and this one and this. And am I allowed to say Taylor Swift, or is that too like pop culture-y or what?
So the purpose of it, because I'm a big fan of like original podcasting, where it was, I'm somebody, it's cheap to do this now. What does it cost to start a podcast? Like $80 if you get a good mic. You can do it for cheaper nowadays. And just the idea of anyone should be able to do this. I liked it. I don't like the celebrity podcasts. I don't like, Prince Harry. It got a pie. I don't like any of that stuff. Like, I don't want to say no one can do a podcast or gatekeep anybody, but I think this is definitely a field for just any regular person who has a message and something they'd like to say. There's kind of a democratization of podcasting, which is what I liked about it. And Jackie was on an episode because I mostly just asked my friends to be on the show at the time. And for some reason had mentioned we should do this for ABA. We should do this for research discussion, because I also was interested in doing journal clubs, journal groups. There was a talk at our local conference, the Babbitt conference around here, about keeping up with the literature. And I said, what a great way to keep up with the literature is forcing myself to every week or every month or whatever, sit down and have to sound intelligent, because I read these articles and I thought about them more than a bare minimum. But the problem is when you just say, hey, everyone, come to my cool journal club, nobody shows up. And so we said, what?
Not
I
true.
showed up.
Some people show up. Yeah, your close
Like,
friends
Lucky
show
and
up.
Diana
Five
showed up.
members. Yeah.
We had 5 members.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah,
We
some
did. We had
people.
some. It was a lot. It was a lot of work though to get 5 people to show up. So the
That's
discussion.
like half a person per page.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't bad like within an organization, but I was really thinking like, what does everyone need? They need cheap CEs, and they need an excuse to force themselves to constantly read articles when there's a million more interesting well, maybe not interesting, but a million more things to do after your workday and so forth.
Lower response effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Possibly more repetitive too, it depends. And then when Jackie was on, we sort of were talking about, well, we should probably just, what if we just did the journal club and it was just the 3 of us talking on a podcast, and then if nobody comes, who cares? That's too bad. But if people come, it's really easy because you just download it, and that's sort of what we did. And for at least the first year or so, I think we had a lower turnout for downloads on the podcast than we did showing up to the in-person journal club. Which, good to remember. If you're starting a podcast, you're not going to have a lot of listeners unless you are a celebrity from day one.
Right. But really the thing with podcasting, which you guys have done, is just you stick with it, like consistency, and like, you don't miss a week, and you just plug away at it, and eventually people hear.
I think when Sharon and I first started as well, we probably had 5 or 10 people. And I think included with that was my mom. So,
Right.
okay. Yeah.
Get those downloads where you
doing
can,
this again?
Yeah. My next question, I guess, would probably be more for Jackie and Diana. A lot of what we do is also helping to mentor people who are coming and new into the field. And you guys probably deal with a lot of people entering the field. I mean, you obviously do because you're of what you do. I'm curious if you notice any real challenge for those people who are like just starting out in the field, just trying to find their field work, or they're getting their degree or starting their first job. What are you guys seeing for that population of students is being really challenging?
Everything.
You want me to talk?
Yeah, you can go talk first, Anna, but I think everything.
Yeah, I think that, there's one set of challenges that come with being a graduate student who's often also attempting to work full time, right? So we could speak to that. But then there are also challenges just to being a new BCBA. And I think that in both of those areas, we as a field have continued to grow and expand outwardly in a lot of really important ways over the past 10 years, let's say. So, for us, when we were going to school, it was very focused, at least for me, on clinical experience as it related really directly to Cooper and the task list. And that made it such that the focus of my studies overlapped greatly with what was on the BCBA exam. And since then, I've learned a lot. in those outwardly expanding ways. And I want to bring all of that knowledge to my new BCBA, future BCBA students, right? So I feel like the breadth of things that we're attempting to teach has grown in really, really important ways, such that we have a lot more focus now in our field on how are we going to provide these evidence-based, empirically based interventions compassionately, ethically, and through a culturally responsive lens. But in doing so, we are adding additional layers for our students to interpret and then apply as they're just starting out as new BCBAs. And I think for all of us who are a little bit older, like this change has been fantastic for our field, but we were able to kind of grow with the field, right? And for our students now, it's like just a fire hose of information that is coming at them all at once. So there is a really quick, I think, expectation for them that they're going to gobble it all up, right? And they got to take in everything they need to learn on the task list and everything that's related to Cooper. And then also immediately, let's ensure that we're interpreting that information and acting in a proactive, compassionate way, which is awesome in our field. But I think that it is a lot for them to learn and to think about. And some of that just comes with, maturity and aging and having the experience in the field of working with families, and they're getting it all kind of at the get-go. So I think that can be a challenge for new BCBAs, and probably also, makes people have that imposter syndrome feeling as well, that they feel like they can't get up to speed as quick as they might need to. And they're worried that they're going to let down their families and their clients, but it is a process. We've all gone through that process. And so I would recommend that they trust the process.
Right. But part of, I think, what you're saying also, what I notice is that we give them so much information. They're bombarded with their supervision hours and the task list and all of this theoretical knowledge. They take the exam and then there's no transition. There's no requirement of now you need to take a year or 2 years and work under someone. The people coming to me are I'm almost done my master's. So I'm ready for the full thing. I'm ready to oversee all the cases. And I don't want this. And so I'll offer them sometimes a transitional, type of role. They're I don't want that. I'm a BCBA. And I think that as a field, I wonder if there's a better solution to create that transition.
Yeah, and the only thing that we have right there that's newer, right, is that if that BCBA is going to be mentoring students, other supervisees or trainees, right, that are in graduate programs, they have to be supervised by a mentor for the first year, right? That's new coming in. So I think we're moving slowly in that direction. But right, I know for me, when I had that same attitude, sadly, I was I'm the best, I'm gonna be the best BCBA, and boy was I not. Right? Even when I first became a graduate student, I thought I was going to be the best because I got in, and I wasn't, right? Because I hadn't set myself up for success in any way. And then when you're a new BCBA, there's no way you can set yourself up for success without mentorship, right? And so I took on far too many clients, and I didn't know what I didn't know because I didn't know, right? And I mean, it's even a miracle that I am still in the field.
Oh gosh.
It's really about that overwhelm too. You're just okay, there's so much information coming at you all at once. And it's okay, so if I'm going to look at every single client, in one particular way, then does that mean I'm really not individualizing the programs, right? Or now there's assessments that come out and it's okay, well, I can just fill in boxes. So every single client is just going to have a program that I can fill in a box. But we all know, because we have the experience, that that's not the way it works. But unfortunately, because it's almost like a factory of okay, you got to get these people out. And as soon as they've got those letters behind their name, okay, go, you can do this now. And, it's, I love the fact that, you have a podcast, we have a podcast, lots of people now have ABA podcasts to try and say, okay, we're going to give you more information now that you are a BCBA, or, as you've already got those letters behind your name or a graduate degree, there's always learning to be had.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're still learning.
We're still learning, absolutely. Yeah.
Doing this. Yeah.
Rob, you said you've been in the field since 2014 as a
Oh
BCBA?
no, I've been in the field longer than that.
Longer than that.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, equivalent of an RBT, which did not exist at the time since
Uh,
2003, and then I became a
okay.
BCB in '08. So long
Okay.
time.
Okay. So as someone who's been in the field for, I guess, over 20 years,
I know.
You're
I don't like
old,
saying
Rob.
that. It was fun to say at first. It's like, I've been in the field for over 20 years. And I said it once or twice and I was excited. And then I was like, oh, that just sounds so damn old. I'm not
I
saying that. I've been in the field for
know.
a while.
A
Sounds
long
old.
time. Okay. For a long time. Someone who's been in the field for a bit, couple years.
I could play a BCBA in a movie from anywhere from, like late 20s to late 30s, I think, probably. Yeah.
Late
Um,
30s.
what have you seen as the biggest change in the field, either as a BCBA in the field or just in the field in general since, then?
I mean, I think there have been some really positive changes. I think there have been some negative changes. So I'll start with the positive ones. So certainly as a field, I think we have started to look into how we fit in with other fields better. I think we play nicer than we used to. And I think that's really led us to speed up with a couple of the conversations we're having in areas that maybe, traditionally, if you look back at some of like the old writings, you'll see people writing about, context. You'll see people writing about community-based participation, right? So it's not like it never existed back in like the 60s and 70s, but so quickly that just wasn't ABA. ABA is autism treatment, and that's it. It's for problem behavior. That's what you're going to do. And it so wasn't, but I didn't even know that until, I'd been working in the field for a long time. That there was more than, autism treatment. I sort of heard about it, like it was a rumor. And I think we've gotten much better at being able to work with other fields and look at what other fields have to offer, whether anthropology, whether more, other social sciences, to really speed up our own conversations and rediscovery of work about the importance of context, the importance of environments, the importance of cultural humility. Which has been really exciting to see. I think that's all come out so much faster than, say, some of the changes of, I wonder, should we use an analog FA or an ISCA? Like that felt like it took a lot longer to discuss just because we're sort of, talking amongst ourselves. I think negatively, I think there's a commodification of ABA that is really playing into some of the incentives, like we were just talking about, the incentives that are for new BCBAs. I know how hard it would be when I was first starting in the field. I know how much money I made. Going along with inflation, I might have actually made more money than kind of the modern RBT is making these days. And if there had been as easy a pathway to, and you're going to go from making this to this, like a tenfold increase in, if you just take on all these clients because you're a BCBA, it would be really hard to accept that, to say, well, even though I know I don't have anyone who's my supervisor, or I don't have anyone who's a boss, and I'm sort of expected to know everything, I'll just take that because I need the money right now. And I think our business models don't really support the message that I give to all my supervisees of, get a job where someone is in charge of you who knows behavior analysis, because as much as I think you're doing a good job, as much as you feel you're doing a good job, I hate to say this, you're not good at your job. You're not good, and it's going to take you a long time to get better at this, and you can't know it all. It's not all on the task list. And if you go into a place where you're getting a decent amount of money, but you have 100 clients and you don't have anyone in charge of you who knows behavior analysis, you're just going to get worse and worse and worse at your job. You're going to get better and better and better at being whatever your job is paying you to do. Where are the reinforcers? Which is not necessarily going to be in your best, the client's best interest, your ethical best interest. So I think that's a real negative. It's just there's money to be had. You sort of see the same thing with like podcasts, and I think how easy it is for information to get out, which on the one hand, so exciting, right? Anyone can get this information as soon as possible. But it was very different when we started, and not to sound really old or like our podcast, is the best, or Matt and Behavioral Innovations, we're the best because we did it a long time. But it was, it wasn't a way to make money when we started it. It was something that if you were doing it, you were doing it because you wanted to do it. That was the only reason. And I think there are inroads for individuals to come into streaming or, live chatting or any of this stuff where you can provide less than stellar information.
There's no filter.
Because there's no filter. There's no reason to say you can't do this.
Guardrail.
Yeah. So I think that is really, and then when we tell our, our trainees, oh, don't jump into a job without a mentor, without a supervisor. Yeah, but where are you going to get a mentor? Where are you going to get a supervisor? I've been making $30,000 and I can't even afford rent. I'm living in my parents' basement and I'm 29 and I'm just got out of grad school. I shouldn't be here. I should be doing something more important. So if someone's going to pay you 3 times as much money to do all this extra work, you don't know that that's not in your long-term best interest or in the best interest of the field. You're going to jump at it. And that's not that's human behavior, right? So I think that's a real negative.
Powers that be. Yes.
I just want to caveat some of those things to say that just because you've been in the field a long time does not automatically make you better than someone who is new, right? There are some amazing, talented, fresh BCBAs who bring some really important perspective and energy to their role. So I don't want to say like there's that distinction. I do think that at any point in your career, recognizing that you don't know everything and that you should seek out someone who can mentor you is key to continuing your own professional success. Like all of us continue to have contact with our own mentors as well. And those are invaluable relationships. Hi, Bill.
Cher and I say on a regular basis, like, thank goodness we have each other. And, if you can't find a mentor, find a friend. What's that game show? Call a friend, and we bounce ideas off of each other all the time. And we've been in the field for years. We don't know it all. So if you can't find a mentor, find somebody else who you can at least play devil's advocate with and see if they'll have a conversation and have that avenue for generating ideas.
Yeah, and I love the suggestion of, find someone who can be in charge of you. I think that's really important. Jackie, do you have any other like good advice to add to that, mentorship / or it could be different? What's good advice that you would recommend?
I think when I consult, I think the biggest problem people have is time management, right? And so with a mentor, someone that's in charge of you, they can help you figure out what your time should look like and where you're spending your time and if that's valuable or not, or if you're spending your time in a way that's not productive for you. And so I think new BCBAs, new students, old BCBAs, right? Like coming back from vacation, anytime BCBAs, like everyday BCBAs should be thinking about how they're using your time, both at work and not at work, right? Because I know many BCBAs try to do their work outside of work, which is also not helpful all the time, right? And so I think really looking at your life and making sure that the time that you are using is productive and meaningful, and when you should be doing those things. Right.
So I'm inside smiling right now, Jackie, because Cher and I have a CEU that we're presenting at noon today. And I was doing the slides and I feel like you were in my computer going, Shayna, stop online shopping, get back to those slides, get back to those slides.
It's so easy. It's so easy.
And I do a lot of work at home. We all fall into those traps. Time management is hard. And I think it's even harder when you're not fluent, right? Because if you're not fluent on what you're doing, there's something that takes me 20 minutes would take a new BCBA 3 hours. And then that's not the same, in terms of the amount of time and also the quality. So it's really a challenge.
Something I've learned as a supervisor, though, too, is that something that I do in 20 minutes takes a long time for someone who's just learning. And as a supervisor, I need to manage my own expectations as well. And instead of giving them 3 of these, my seemingly 20-minute tasks, that's overwhelming for someone. And I have to break that down for many people who we mentor.
Yeah.
I think we see that, or I know I've seen that sort of in the dichotomy between how we read articles to talk about on the podcast versus how I assign articles to supervisees, to trainees, in that when we're doing it for the we want to have really thought about it, we want to be connecting it to other
Rob.
Okay, we're going to skip Rob's part altogether. It was something about articles and he was going somewhere with that, but we can skip that altogether.
Okay.
He says he can't hear us.
Okay.
Can he leave and come back in?
Yeah.
Would that mess it up?
No.
Okay. So what's it like I mean, working together with Diana and Rob, obviously there's that dynamic. And then, you know, working with Jackie and having this podcast together. How does that all work?
Jackie, do you want to go?
Sure, I'll go. I think for the most part, we've been friends for a really, really, really long time. And I think that is one of the main reasons that we intermesh very well. I mean, we were all friends before even Rob and Diana got married.
Oh,
and
wow.
Diana and I have been friends for longer than that, and we live together, and we've been besties for a very long time.
Yeah, so we podcast together, we work together, and we're friends.
Best friends.
I guess that's why it feels so natural.
Yeah.
It does feel so natural. When I listen to your podcast, it's just such, like, you just bounce things off of each other. There's no awkward pauses or anything. It's really great.
I know sometimes we feel also like an old married couple because like I can predict what she's going to say and we know when to jump in.
Finish each other's sentences. We actually show up wearing a lot of the
Sometimes
same
we dress the
things.
same, like totally not on
We
purpose.
do too.
We do
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, so it's an interesting.
So I think that's helpful. I mean, there is some like drawbacks, right, though, right? So if there's like trouble brewing somewhere, either podcasting or life or work, right, then that gets a little more tricky, right? Because you do have to navigate all those different spirits, although it doesn't happen often. But right, that is one of the things that, you know, we just have to move forward in a way. So that doesn't happen often. It's only happened a few times in like the 8 years that we've been doing this. So yeah, I think that because we've had that friendship and, you know, we set really clear expectation and boundaries about like what we were going to do and who's going to do what and who's going to do what we're going to do and like what are the fallouts if we do something different right in the beginning, that I don't think we didn't really have a lot of, we don't really have a lot of squabbles.
Okay, good.
Right.
Yeah, we're very lucky, I think, in that way, because they say don't go into business with your friends, which may have been advice you also ignored.
Your spouse?
Or your spouse.
Yes.
But yeah, setting up clear expectations and defining the roles is really key, I think, to kind of keeping it all working. We're also just all trying to do a lot, and I'm sure that you are as well. And so that is a challenge unrelated to like the dynamic between us, but just because this is kind of like a side project for us. And Rob and I also have 3 children as well. So it's just a lot. We're just busy, and you got to be like efficient and get it done, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Back to the new BCBA, or kind of back to the advice topic. We like to always end with some advice, which we already talked about, but maybe you guys can recommend like a favorite resource, whether it could be like a book, or what do you guys tell BCBAs in the field to check out? It could be a way for them to read journal articles or
listen to ABA Inside Back.
If they're already listening to your podcast, what would you add to that as a resource you would recommend they check out?
I have one. I have found this incredibly useful. And I used to poo-poo the idea of it, but now I kind of love it and get excited about it, is subscribing to table of contents and research journals. So I pick 3 of my favorite research journals and then subscribe to the table of contents. So when they come out, I get an email and then it's like, look, here's the table of content. And I may or may not read those articles, right? Like, but at least I know that they're there.
And I know straight to your inbox.
Right. I see that they exist in the universe with a T. And I think
the sun-kissed universe.
Right. And it's very, it's very helpful to know that they're there, and that if something is exciting for me, or if I have time, then I can go look at those articles. So I think that's been really nice that I've started doing in the past few years. Although someone gave me that recommendation like a long, long time ago. I was like, I'm not going to do that. That's ridiculous.
That's a great suggestion.
I have really enjoyed that. So that's what I would recommend.
I would not suggest setting up a Google alert for like a
Oh.
really common topic in our field, because I did that for a while and I would just get like so many emails and they were never relevant. So
It
don't
was
do that one.
horrible, right?
Yeah.
We did autism, and then it was just
Yeah.
like
Oh gosh.
articles
Every
about
morning it was
kids
Wow.
drowning.
Talk
Like,
about managing your time, right? Not an effective time management strategy.
I do think that there are a lot of great resources that are available on the World Wide Web, as people
Perfect.
say. So one should find communities there that resonate and speak to you. I also think you have to approach that, cautiously, so that you are, keeping your open mind with regard to the information that you're receiving, that, as we already mentioned, is unvetted, right? My other recommendation is like the opposite of that, which is find and or create, if needed, a community close to home where you can develop in person or real-time relationships with people who maybe they come to be your mentors, maybe they are peers for you, that can kind of help you grow in the field. So many states or regions have their own behavior analytic organizations and or smaller conferences that I would highly recommend people find a way to get there or to participate in, because those relationships that you will establish there are really invaluable in the sense of the community that those create can't really be replicated in any other way. So I think investing in hometown communities is going to have a big payback for you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think that's
Awesome advice.
invaluable advice and suggestions. And what's next for the podcast? What can we expect?
we're gonna keep doing it,
Awesome.
Good. Good. What article do I need to read next?
right? I think some new things that we're gonna be trying out in the, I guess now not so distant future, is we're hoping to create a monthly newsletter for people to read
I'll
about.
sign up for the table of contents.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. A monthly newsletter we've been considering. We've been thinking about some more book clubs because people have liked those, and hopefully expanding our social footprint, although challenging because we don't have time. So
I'm trying, but then I got locked out of Instagram.
Yeah, it's hard.
But I think
It's
those
a
are
black
some-
hole of time.
yeah, so those are some new things that I think people can be expecting from us that we've not done before.
Awesome.
People really like the book clubs, I think. So we do those quarterly. We'll keep those up and coming. In July, which is when we're recording this, we had like a month of guests. So every episode has a guest or multiple guests with it. So that's kind of nice. We don't do that all the time, but that's like happening currently. And then we always do supervision in September, so you can get your supervision Cs if you need those. And so those are the types of things that we have in the works. Yeah. And sometimes we pop up at conferences, and sometimes we do trivia at those conferences. So maybe you can check us out there.
It's amazing. I look forward to it. It's been a pleasure to talk to you today.
Thank you.
And I feel like I know you already just from listening to your podcast. I seriously have binged your podcast for the last, I guess,
Aw.
8 years now.
Well,
So
thanks for listening.
thank you for coming on and talking to everybody in our audience as well.
Yeah, it was so nice to meet you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
having us.